Good.
We're recording.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for coming. Today, we have an awesome show for you. As always, I am your co-host, Devin Kenzo. We have with me our host, Nigel Bennett, and our very special guest today. He is a full-time investor, a career entrepreneur, and the author of Goodness Is Contagious. This is his old book. It is out now. And his new book, Simple Wealth, 6 Proven Principles for Financial Freedom, which is dropping available January 2021. And our very good friend, thank you so much for coming on the show, David Ash. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me, Devin.
Amazing.
Hey, Dave, Nigel here. What we do on our show first is we do a little thing called Two Truths and a Lie.
Okay.
Yeah. So to our listeners here, Dave has sent us 2 things that he has done, which are true, and another one, which is actually a fib. So Devin and I are going to try and guess which ones is the lie. So ready to go, Dev?
Ready to go.
Okay, here we go. So the first one is, I rode my motorcycle from the West Coast, Vancouver, British Columbia, to the East Coast, St. John's, Newfoundland, solo 4 years ago, and it rained most of the way. Second one, I am Canada's online Texas Hold'em poker champion 2 years running. Oh, man. Oh, and this third one here, look at this. This third one here is, I visited North Korea in 2008 and had dinner with high-level government officials. Man, it sounds like the movie The Interview. Remember with Seth Rogen and James Franco?
Oh, man.
Oh, boy. I don't know. So what are you thinking, Dev?
I'm going to go with the second one.
So the second one,
the Texas Hold'em one, yeah, because the North Korea one, I was like, you know what, I know a bit about that. Okay, no, I'm gonna go with the second one.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, you know what? Yeah, I'm gonna go with the second one too, because I actually do the answers.
You do them beforehand.
Oh, that's crazy. That's crazy. I just can't. I can't believe that North Korea one is just.
Yeah,
crazy.
that's a story. I'll tell you that one day.
Yeah, we'll have to get some backstory on that sometime.
So just a little bit of a flashback. Dave and I have known each other since about 1996, I think, Dave.
Yeah.
I think when I was actually dragged into the Entrepreneurs Organization, and I met you on a recruiting boat cruise. Yeah. And we were in the same entrepreneurs, which is the Young Entrepreneurs Organizations, because when we were young back then. Right. And I was recruited to this focus group or forum group, we call it, of about nine or 10 of us. And we were in that focus group for, I don't know, what, about 15 years or so?
Yeah.
It was like 15 years. Yeah. So I mean, my experience in the Entrepreneurs Organization was probably one of the most profound things that I've ever done. And I know that we talked about it over and over the years that, you know, if either of us hadn't joined, our lives would have been completely different. You know,
totally.
What do you think? Right. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it on so many levels, Nigel, I trace I look at where our life is today, business life, but personal life, family life, health, on so many levels. EO intersected, you know, in my life at a critical time, and it really shaped me in a way that I could only really appreciate in retrospect.
Yeah, it was incredible. We had these things which we called universities. Remember the universities, which they were learning events, and there would be it'd be like 500 entrepreneurs from all over the world that would go to these learning events. And we were at one in California, down in Santa Monica, I think, or in San Diego. We did a few. So there's one instance where I was with you and we were having lunch with our forum group at the Coronado Hotel in San Diego. And I was sitting across from you, and you were really starting to light up. I mean, in my opinion, you were really starting to light up our forum group. You were your business was it was a tough grind, but your business was rocking and rolling at this time, and you were really starting to do a lot of philanthropy work. And you had bought an old hotel, and you had pretty much gutted it. in the Vancouver's worst area, the Vancouver East Side, and you turned it into a shelter. And also, I think you're in the process of creating the Vivian, which is a women's drop-in shelter as well. And I was in complete awe of this guy, Dave Ash, that was able to step out of his business and start doing this type of stuff. And I asked you a question, and I never forgot. And because I didn't know what to do. I wanted to help, but I didn't know where to start.
Yeah.
And I said to Dave, I said, Dave, how do you do this? And your answer was, Nigel, just take one step at a time, take the first step, and it'll all just. So, just want to share how you started, your philanthropy work, because you're a busy guy. You had two kids and young kids.
Yeah. Well, I mean, anybody who, and Nigel, you and I, as you said, we're an EO and we're entrepreneurs, and we had turned the corner financially, right? And what happens, I think, is that when you're struggling, when you're a younger entrepreneur or when you're starting out in life and you have more bills than you have money, the idea of giving some of it away when you already owe people money that you perhaps can't pay, that idea really doesn't add up. And I wasn't raised that way. So I didn't have a habit of giving. I didn't have a reference point for it, because money isn't the only thing we can give. A lot of people that don't have a lot of money or even any money are some of the most generous people that I've ever met. They give of themselves. They give of their time, their talent, and they give up a little bit of the financial resources they have. So generosity isn't only a financial thing. But I didn't have that habit, or a grid for it, because I was always in the need position, and it wasn't modeled for me. It wasn't in my worldview. I wasn't raised that way. My parents were paycheck to paycheck, and it wasn't something that was on their grid. But anyway, so at that, for me, the way it started, I think, was that turn the corner financially. All of a sudden, there's this extra money in the bank account, and it's more money than I need, more money than my family needs. And I'm being confronted with the big question is, well, why? Why have I worked so hard? Why have I risked, everything, literally taken chances, beyond reasonable limits, often financial risks and all kinds of other risks, sacrificed time away from my family, done all of this for a number that's on a piece of paper or on a computer screen that isn't changing my life. And I'm going so all of a sudden my sense of purpose, I guess, it's midlife crisis is probably a good way of looking at it, or a way of saying it. I'm going, okay, I give my whole life over to this thing. I'm in my 40s by that time. And I'm going, well, what's it all about? What's life all about? Is it about making more money? And clearly that wasn't, the making more money wasn't filling up this sense of, who I was. It wasn't giving me purpose. So I really, frankly, in desperation, trying to find meaning in life, I began stepping out of my comfort zone, slowly but surely, looking for opportunities to give back. And Nigel, my family story all too well. My mother was born a ward of the court. She was a foster child. And when I was a kid, when I was about 12, she had a major nervous breakdown. And that, you could tie that very easily to the trauma she experienced as a child. And she went downhill steadily from there. My father died when I was 22. And then my mother was alone. Myself and my brothers were gone. And then my mother's mental health deteriorated to the point where she ended up on the streets, going from shelter to shelter. She ended up in jail. She ended up on the streets. She ended up in all kinds of horrible situations. And we tried our hardest to help her, but her mental illness was so aggressive. The nature of her personality disorder was such that she could not be contained or controlled. And the way our laws work today, if someone's mentally ill, unless they're a risk to their own life, unless they're saying, I'm going to kill myself or I'm going to kill somebody else, the law does not allow you to restrain them. So you can't say, hey, you're mentally ill, you have to go to a mental health institution, unless you're an absolute threat a total threat to somebody or somebody else or yourself, you can't be restrained. So of course, my mother ended up being highly mobile, traveled all over Canada. We didn't know where she was. One day we discovered she passes away in a rooming house in Halifax, Nova Scotia, tragically all by herself. Hadn't talked to her. Nobody knew where she was for years. And so of course that ripped my heart out. That was in 1989. So this fast forwarding from 1989 to this time when we are talking about now, when I start giving back, of course, I'm trying to reconcile, you know, this pain of my family's life and my childhood and, you know, figuring all of this out. And I'm saying, okay, well, I want to start giving back. And for me, the types of causes that I would want to give back to were very clear. Given what happened to my mother, you know, I was dragged from my office, the comfort of my office, for this big business I built with 500 employees, and I was the big shooter and the grand poobah, and everybody opened the doors for me and deferred to me and told me how smart and laughed at all my jokes. All of a sudden, it's very funny when you start making money, your jokes become a lot funnier. That's one of the advantages of being wealthy, right? Or having a bunch of people work for you. It's quite sad, but it's true. It's true. But anyway, so I wasn't really super funny before that. Apparently, my jokes didn't quite land quite as heavily. But anyway, so you go from this world where all of a sudden you've got this comfortable world. You've got, you know, people laugh at your jokes. People defer to you. You've got money. You can travel. Got great friends in my EO group. They didn't laugh at my jokes.
Ever.
That was one of the good things about the group, is that I got a barometer on how funny I really was.
There you
At all, apparently. But anyway, so in this situation, though, I guess what happened for me, getting back to my journey, I'm confronted and I'm conflicted. So I say, okay, how do I move from this office here that's very comfortable to this working with the homeless?
Right.
And I'll tell you, it was really tough, because you can imagine that even though my heart was drawn towards my, you know, what happened, even though I was impacted deeply by what happened to my mother, the last thing on the face of the earth that I wanted to do was to go anywhere near anybody who was suffering the same way my mother did, because of course it brought up all those emotions, all those feelings around, you know, homelessness and mental health and, you know, all those tragic things. So it was one of those things. It was very, it really challenged me, because it was really, even more than most people, you know, I would say, one of the hardest things I ever had to do. But I took baby steps, and you know, so there's a whole story on that. I wrote a book in my memoir. I talk about how I took those baby steps, and one of the ways was I helped a lady who was, you know, a street mom was her name. She had a ministry to kids on the streets, homeless or street kids in Vancouver, and she needed a new trike, and she needed some money to set up a new facility. So I helped her with that, and I got to know her. And it was like little baby steps, one at a time. And every time I went down to see her, I'd see this lady, this super overweight lady in a medical trike, dragging a trailer of sandwiches and soup and hot chocolate around Granville Street, downtown Vancouver, feeding these street youth, and feeding literally anybody in her path, and saying, you know, I have no money, you know, I just love these kids, and you know, God tells me I'm a Christian. God tells me I'm supposed to love my neighbor, and these children are my neighbors. These people that are hungry are my neighbors, and I'm supposed to feed them. And she says, I have no money, but I just pray and God provides, you know, and I'm looking at it. I'm a business guy. I got 500 employees. I got millions of dollars coming into my business, coming and going. And I'm going like, I don't know about this God provides stuff. But anyway, so I'm looking at this lady, and I'm just seeing her life of generosity, living a life of total abandon. You know, she just completely has no material possessions whatsoever. And yet she's just, her days are filled, and she has an army of people that she goes down with. Hey mom, these kids come out of the doorways. Hey mom, how you doing? Giving her hugs, you know, little, you know, teenagers with purple hair and piercings, and, you know, living on the streets, giving her hugs. And she's, you know, giving them heck and telling them to be good and stay out of trouble, and giving them hugs and giving them power bars and soup and sandwiches and socks. And she just goes from street to street and block to block. And I'm kind of going like, you know, wow, you know. And then that was a spiritual journey for me. That was kind of a beginning of a spiritual journey. You know, I met this lady doing that. I kind of go, okay. And I have in my family, I have my brothers who were pastors, and they'd been praying for me for 25, 30 years because they were Christians, and
Yeah.
I had no interest in any type of spiritual dimension whatsoever. I figured money was the way to go, and money was
Right.
and then that led me to a very powerful encounter, a spiritual, journey I went on, and I came to faith, in Christ, and then in coming to faith, you quickly are immersed in a community of people. The underlying doctrine of Jesus Christ is to love your neighbor. A biblical principle is to love the Lord your God, but to love your neighbor as you'd love yourself. So generosity, feeding the hungry, clothing the naked, visiting the prisoners, and caring for the least of these. These are very foundational biblical principles that Jesus Christ goes on and on about. If you read the New Testament, it's just all about feeding the hungry, clothing the naked, caring for the widows and the orphans,
Right.
and all these things. So if you're reading that Bible, you can't avoid those things. And of course, as a new Christian, I was reading this stuff every day and being very deeply convicted about what happened to my mother, and also convicted because I've got all these resources. So what am I going to do here?
Sure.
I've had this spiritual awakening. I had this desire to do something. So that gave me the impetus to start getting out of my comfort zone and moving into the downtown east side. And we started helping different shelters down there. And that led to
well, it's really interesting that you say all this, because I know there's another thing that you said to me quite a few years ago, because you were going down this path. You were starting to, help. And you said, you said this, you said, stroking a check is great. I think you actually said that. You said stroking a check is great, but giving of yourself, there's nothing like it. And I didn't quite understand that. I didn't understand. I was in the same boat as you. I had 3 little kids, like you did. And the business, we were struggling, and we were starting to kind of get a bit of traction. And I just was like, I don't get it. Like, I don't get it. And then you said, well, Nigel, we're going to Mexico. We're going to help build homes for the homeless. You should come. Yeah. And it was a Christian-based organization called Youth with a Mission, YWAM. And I'm like, I don't know. Yeah. Okay. No. So I said, no, actually the first year I said, no, it's okay. I pass. You came back and you showed me some photographs of Donovan and Jasmine, your kids, playing soccer in the dirt with these young kids in Mexico, and you're building houses. And I have something here. Where is it? I'm just going to put it up here. Hang on 2 seconds. Let's see how I'm going to share my screen. So, I don't know if you guys can see this here.
Yep, we got it.
This is Dave's book, and this is Dave. So I'm gonna flip down. I'm gonna flip down too. So I threw a few photos again. So for people listening in your car, I guess we can explain a little bit what's going on. So Dave invited our family to go with his family down into Tijuana, Mexico, over the border, where the guards, as you're going through, there's sandbags, there's, I don't know, AK-47s with military police as you're going through. And we had young little kids, and we're going through these blockades, and we're going deep into Mexico here to help build homes for the homeless. And there's a photograph here. Dev, what's that?
That is the cutest kid I've ever seen. Who is that?
I think that kid should be in the movies, maybe. I don't know.
One day.
So how old were you, Devin, here?
Oh man, I'm not too sure.
Like 5
probably
or
like,
something.
Yeah,
5 or
6 or
6
7 maybe. Yeah, actually probably young. Yeah, probably around 5.
And there's a photo of Dave trying to hammer a nail.
There you go.
He's pretending really well.
He's showing me how it's done, I think.
That's a photo op. Yeah.
That's right. It's a photo op. Yeah. So Dave, it was an incredible experience. Dave invited us to go with his family, and we went, and with some other entrepreneurial type business owners and whatnot from all over, from Calgary and some from California. And we were building homes for these homeless people. But I never forget when we went to our first spot, there was 2 garage doors that were put together with a tarp over it, and a family of 7 living under it on a little wet, soggy mattress. And it was absolutely shocking for us to see this. So as Dave said, to me, a few years before that, giving a check is amazing, which it is, but giving of yourself,
Mhm.
there's nothing quite like it. And now what I've learned over all these years, giving as a family, I don't think there's anything more powerful as being able to give as a family. And so we've just been so fortunate. We've gone, many times with Dave and Lise, and we've led our own trips, and it's just been one of the most powerful experiences. Just Dave again here in the top
That's
corner,
Awesome.
Same shot, man.
trying to hammer. It's the same Chinese. Yeah, it is. It is a photo op.
Good. This is good.
And then and then here's our families together
Aw.
here, and there's
Wow.
Donovan and Jasmine and Kina when she was like 3. She's 20 now, and this shot here really says it all, I think. When we were there and we were working with the families, we weren't building homes and handing it. We were actually working with the families. So their kids were painting, the fathers were hammering, and we were trying to converse in our broken Spanish with them. And it's been one of the most profound things. And I trace it all the way back to when Dave said to me, I asked him the question, I said, what do you do? Like, I don't understand how a guy like you, you're so busy, how you can get involved. And it was take that first step. Stop on the side of the road and talk to a homeless person, hear their story. Everybody has a life story. Give them $5. Don't ever question what the $5 is for, because chances are they're probably going to go spend it on something, but that's not for you to judge. And just have a chat with them. And then one thing will lead to another. And that's what happened for our family, is that talking to a homeless person led to, going with you guys to Mexico multiple times, and our lives have never been the same since. And I'll go back up to another couple little shots here. So Dave and our friend Praveen Varshni challenged me to go and sleep on the streets and raise money for the homeless youth in Vancouver, in the Vancouver East Side. So Dave and I went, and this is Dave gearing up for the night out. We always do it in November, and November in Vancouver is miserable, like it is today. It's November and it's miserable and it's raining. And so we would hunker down and try and get a couple of hours sleep. I did this a few years. And what I didn't realize, I asked my wife to come with me, Reiko, one year, and we had our cardboard. We have a piece of cardboard and a sleeping bag, and never sleep beside a dumpster, because at 3:00 in the morning, that's when the rats come out and they climb over everything, anything close to a dumpster. So yeah, that's what we learned from that there. So yeah, there's Dave, myself, and
I love that picture for me.
with Praveen there. So yeah, he's another great EO. He was in our forum group.
Looks like you and I just rescued him.
Yeah. I'm gonna send this to Praveen. It did. Yeah. Good old Praveen.
Oh man.
So I just threw a couple of photographs here just to I don't have to turn it off again here. Hang on.
That's a great shot there.
Stop sharing. Yeah, I better stop sharing quick here.
There we go.
So it's just been an amazing, journey. And, for people out there, I honestly believe that everybody wants to help. We just don't know where to start or what to do. Yeah, exactly. So your conversation with me was instrumental in myself and my whole family. Yeah. And Dave, I mean, because of you, I've added up all the numbers. We've led about 700 people to go to Mexico to build homes. Wow. And I thank you. Like that comes right out of our conversation in San Diego. Yeah. Awesome. And it's like you said, it's just take that first little step.
Nigel, I mean, thank you, by the way. I mean, it just warms my heart. And you're always so profuse in your acknowledgement of that and your thanks to me for that. And, but you have such a big heart that I know that would have ended up expressing itself somewhere else if it had not been me. I happen to be the guy that stumbled in front of you at that moment that helped you figure that out, because you would have figured that out some other way and had an amazing time. But I received that acknowledgement and thank you. And I've been totally blessed to be a part of it. And the one thing I want to get back to and really encourage anybody who's listening, you and I are entrepreneurs. So we've been very blessed by being entrepreneurs to have made a few bucks and not only earned money, but also earned space, time and space, right? The room to do what we want to do. And, often because of that, you and I and people who are lucky enough to be in this position, receive a lot of accolades. We receive a lot of acknowledgement because of it, particularly from the benefactors, particularly from the people who benefit from our generosity. And that's always wonderful. And I always receive that, with total grace. But it's really important, for me to always remind myself, that it's easier for me to give back than it is for a lot of other people. I have extra money. I have extra time. Money and my time, the amount of time I have, is a true blessing. I get to use it that way. But there are so many people out there who have very little money and very little time, who give so sacrificially and are blessed by it. And the encouragement, that I want to give anybody out there who's struggling with where do I start, like the question you asked me that day, Nigel, in California, is where do I start? I think that's a question that everybody, needs to be asking. I don't care if your bank account is empty. I don't care how busy you are. I think the idea is how can I make the world around me a bit of a better place, today. And that's, your next door neighbor, that's just being kind. It's being loving. It's being helpful. It's being generous with your kindness, with your heart. And I just want to encourage that because there's a scripture in the Bible that talks about, the widow. The widow's mite is what it is. And this widow goes up to the collection plate and she drops, her one coin, and Jesus points to her and makes a point of telling everybody who's listening, now you see what she's given is more than all of you have given today, because she's given her last penny, and that type of sacrificial giving is rewarded in ways, I believe in heaven and on earth, and it's rewarded in your hearts, it's rewarded in your life. It transforms your life here on earth into one of, duty and busyness to one of meaning. And it's just an encouragement for anybody, no matter who you are, where you are, to just use your time, your talent, your energy to start and give in some way, shape, or form, because it just transforms your life. And I say that with passion because I lived the first 40 some odd years of my life devoid of that. I was not doing that. I was focusing on myself, yes, I was generous to my wife and my kids and my close friends, but I didn't have the spirit of generosity that overflowed to my greater community. In fact, I was the exact opposite. My heart was very hard. And that's a lonely, darker place to live. So my encouragement is to get out of your comfort zone. Whoever's listening to this, whoever wants to learn how to start getting back, and just take baby steps in any way, shape, or form.
So if you, Dev, you may want to ask a question there, like if, like somebody like Dev.
Yeah, for sure. Actually, I got a question for you. So let's just say if you took yourself back to, younger Dave, let's go to like a 24-year-old Dave, somewhere my age, like what would be your three words of wisdom that you would give your younger self, or somebody in my shoes looking to your big 3 points?
My big 3 words of wisdom.
Yeah. Or 3 separate points, but your 3 kind of.
Yeah. Be loyal. Be loyal. Be loyal in your friendships, be loyal in your love. Be humble. All that you have is a gift, from God. Your good looks, your talent. These aren't things that you've earned, right? We've been given them all by the grace of God. Not all of us are given the same talents and gifts, right? So, and be brave.
Be brave.
Be really brave.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Those are great. Wow. Well, thanks, Dave. I really want to thank you so much again for being on our show. And
my absolute pleasure, Nigel.
No, you mean so much to our whole family, and I'm getting
Likewise. You gotta shut her down before we start crying.
Yeah, we're good. Dave and I Dave and I will cry together.
Well, before Nige starts crying here, I'm going to wrap up the show. So I'm just going to say thank you so much again, Dave, for coming on the show.
Thank you, Devon.
Amazing message for everybody out there, young entrepreneurs, older entrepreneurs. Everybody, I think, should get their hands on his new book, which will be coming out January 2021. Look for that one. It's going to be awesome. Six Proven Principles for Financial Freedom by David Ash. And thank you just one more time. Thank you so much for coming to the show. I know how much you mean to my father and our whole family just because of all you've done for us.
Thank you, Devon.
All the roads you've led us down. So
okay.
Yeah, thanks. We're gonna for our listeners, we're gonna post Dave's book links and everything onto the webcast. So you just have to click and it'll take you there. So
right in the description, all the information will be in there on how to get your hands on one of these.
Awesome.
Yeah. So thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dave.
Cheers.
Bye.